Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Answers for the Family with Alan Cardoza and Matt Polachek, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to another edition of Answers for the Family. I'm your host, Alan Cardoza, and with me is my co-host, Dr. Matt Polachek.
For those of you that have been listening, sending in questions and comments, thank you so much.
And please continue to help spread the word that every Monday from 11 a.m. to noon Pacific time, this show will bring special guests that can inspire, educate, and in some cases entertain,
while bringing answers and options to making your lives happier, healthier, and more successful.
Now, this show will address issues such as locating a runaway teen, family crisis intervention, building self-esteem, dealing with addictions, and so much more.
We'll introduce you to talented authors, caring people, and new innovations in the areas of health, security, and fun for you and your family.
With our experience working with families in crisis, we've been fortunate to meet and work with some of the top professionals in many of the helping fields who are all working to make this world a better place for all of us. So, Matt, it's great to see you here. I'm glad to be here. It's a beautiful Monday morning in Los Angeles.
And it's National Mental Health Day.
That's right.
So for all people listening in the field and interested, please go online, call your resources and make a difference in our lives and the community that you live in.
Exactly. And internationally, if there's anything that you can do for somebody else to help their mental health, this is the time to start doing it.
Well, we're very excited. Our guest today is Justin Luke Riley, now 28 years old, and he's been in long-term recovery since 2007. He's president and CEO of Young People in Recovery and a founding member.
Now, Justin has done organizational development consulting for many different industries and has been a youth and community engagement pastor as well as a private life coach.
He graduated cum laude from the University of Colorado at Denver and was in the university's Honor and Leadership program in 2013, receiving a Bachelor's of Arts in Communication, Mediation, and Public Relations. He's currently completing his executive MBA.
Now, Justin has been featured in many media outlets for his innovation and his involvement in youth leadership and community engagement.
He served on the executive board of multiple nonprofit enterprises and in many other service-oriented capacities.
Now, Justin lives in Denver, Colorado, where he shares that he is married to the woman of his dreams. So he's obviously, when we first got on with him, he said he's living the dream, so he continues to share that. The love of his life's name is Rachel Marie. And they recently had their first child, Everly Hope, who enjoys spending time with her puppy, King Bear. Justin, welcome to Answers for the Family.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm excited to connect and answer some of the questions.
And Justin, we always do background checks, and we learned a lot about you. And one of the cool things is you were with the president the last month or the last few months. Tell us about that.
Yes, that was for me just a huge win and a sign of how far so many leaders, even before I ever got into the scene of recovery advocacy, that really was a national win. To have somebody in long-term recovery sitting with the current president of the United States and to hear him affirm that addiction recovery and mental health is not a moral failing, but a public health issue is certainly a memory that I'll have quite literally forever.
When you say public health issue, us in the field and you are have a very firm understanding of addiction as a disease. Do you think that the general public is starting to move towards that, or do you think we still have a long way to go?
I do think that we still have a long way to go. However, I think especially recently, the general public has been really privileged to see some unprecedented times of public figures coming out and stepping forward, talking about their own recovery. Most recently, we saw President Obama and Macklemore hosting an event together to talk about the recovery aspect of addiction and mental health.
We have UCLA right down the street here, and they've been using these SPECT scans for the last, 5 to 10 years. And to me, where we can start seeing brain activity, and for me, the idea of disease, we always wanted to link it to an organ or a place in the body to really solidify something as a disease. And these SPECT scans have done that, in my opinion. They've given a point in the brain and areas in the brain that are completely affected by drugs and alcohol. And to me, this was, revolutionary in the sense where now we can physically see the signs of disease, which gave it a lot of credibility. Do you foresee this being like the turning point, or do we still need more, medical research and evidence-based stuff to show this?
I'm always a fan of more is always better, but really, I think that is great progress that is happening, and I think it will be something that will help turn the tide, certainly. But I also think that there's going to be people that will need more, that they'll say we're going to need an even greater body of evidence, and if we can connect that to also stories of success and multiple stories of long-term recovery across the industries, not only for those who are in long-term recovery, but those that are in long-term recovery from all walks of life. I think if we can positively inundate or permeate culture with countless stories of people can and do recover, along with the research and along with the medical breakthroughs, I think with all of those things working in concert, that great change will happen.
That's great. Now, Justin, Matt and I were just interviewed on another show, and one of the things we were talking about was community. So share with us a little bit, and with our audience, a little bit about the community that you formed, which is known as Young People in Recovery.
Absolutely. So our leaders all across the country, we have young people who are in long-term recovery, and also family members and supporters that are community-led or community-cultivated leaders that lead our YPR chapters. And these chapters can take the form of many different activities, from advocacy to action to directly helping and supporting young people in or seeking recovery. We now even have some of our chapters actively engaged in different types of prevention programs. When we talk about recovery and community recovery, for us, we come at that from a perspective of the continuum of care, which includes prevention, treatment, and recovery. And fortunately, because of our dynamic leaders and all of their amazing hard work, it's very easy for me to brag because they're so extraordinary and they give so much of their time, is that really our chapters and their leadership have been found to be effective in all aspects of that recovery continuum, which is obviously really exciting.
And we are so grateful for Young People in Recovery and have learned about the program, and we'll talk more about it today. The old model of sending your loved one away for 30 days and then them coming back and assuming that they're, quote, cured, fixed, without changing environment, without changing community, that has gone away. And we have a much clearer understanding of this concept of recovery management, which to me is the future and where we're going. But is Young People in Recovery, have they started the process of really inundating themselves into the treatment programs so it's not just talk, but we're actually starting to build that bridge?
Absolutely. So we have a really, really great program that was formed out of our local chapters advocating for that gap between treatment and community to be closed, if not completely eliminated. And so through our leaders advocating locally, volunteering, giving up their time and energy, going into treatment centers and talking about recovery on day one, not just on day 31 with an aftercare plan, but really out of all of that amazing work and those chapters continue to form, we now have a program called EPIC, which is actually curriculum that works right in concert with a treatment center that closes the gap after they graduate to help them integrate back into a YPR chapter, or even in some cases start a YPR chapter to really start living out that recovery-ready community, or what we call a recovery lifestyle, because it isn't just simply a matter of a timeline, but really an ongoing lifestyle that can be continually invested in and adapted to and supported through a community aftercare model with our chapters, and that's what they really embody.
Now, Justin, speaking of the chapters, explain a little bit how the YPR chapters work and how they interface with each other.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So chapters are primarily, with the exception of some of our funded programs that we get from federal or state dollars, or private treatment centers or private organizations or foundations wanting to support more staffed chapters, most of them are volunteer ran. And so concretely, it's a group of leaders in a community that come together and say, gosh, we know that people can and do recover, and we want to be a part of making a proactive solution in the community. So they'll focus on areas of whether it's an asset in their community or maybe something that's more of a deficit or doesn't exist yet, along strategic pillars for employment, housing, education, and other types of recovery-related resources like the EPIC program or the Phoenix program or programs just like that, so people in the community can have the access that they need and deserve to have their recovery program continually supported by those volunteer leadership teams and individual peers that we train and help facilitate other types of programming for them to maintain that long-term recovery.
Now, Justin, we have a question coming in over the internet, and I just want to take this time to tell people, I know that this show is in the middle of the day. We get lots of teachers, we get lots of people that are working in the middle of the day, so they can't call in at the time in which you're on. I love the fact that they take the time ahead of time and go ahead and either email in their questions. So please go to our website, check out some of the shows. If you have questions either for other shows or for the upcoming show, please take the time to do it. We will try always to get those questions asked on the air. This one reads, our 17-year-old has relapsed 4 times now with his primary issue being marijuana. He claims he needs it to overcome the stress of life, but the abuse has led to other drugs, and we are fearful where his life is headed and what will happen when he turns 18. After spending the bulk of our savings on therapeutic programs, we are not sure what to do next. I read about your program on the Answers for the Family website, and I am wondering how YPR could work for our son, and if you might be opening a branch in and around the Sacramento area in the near future. And this is from Julie N. And again, thank you, Julie, for sending in this question.
Yeah, Julie, that's a great question. And so much of that, before I even answer it, just really resonates with my personal journey to long-term recovery. I myself went through 7 different programs by the time I was 19. And now, God willing, and continue to work a program, I'll be approaching a decade soon enough, which is, for me and my family, something that we never thought would be possible. So first and foremost, don't give up hope and know that there's always a way, if there's a will for that young person or person of any age seeking a long-term recovery program, for them to get well. So I just wanted to put that out there too. As it relates to how a YPR chapter could really support and help somebody who's 17 or of different ages, but we'll go with Julie's question first, is for a 17-year-old who's experimenting with marijuana and looking at incorporating other ideally recovery principles to help their upward mobility, and once they're past 18 and continue to become a young adult, how they can stay successful, is I would say there's nothing that beats almost getting eyeball to eyeball with another young person who's in that recovery journey and sitting down, and those young people and different people at varying stages of their recovery being able to understand and communicate and encourage that individual, and then ideally even show them different recovery lifestyle choices that may or may not include the use or misuse of marijuana, and ideally they could get to their maximum potential, if you will, without having to use that substance, especially if that substance, from what I could tell from the question, isn't yielding the results of a healthier, more proactive lifestyle, but seemingly maybe leading into other negative consequences in their life. So fortunately for us, whether it's starting a chapter in Sacramento, which anybody could do that's listening, they can go online to our website and apply to be a chapter. It's our job as an organization to really train and vet those inquiries to make sure that that chapter is really ready to receive that young person coming in and saying, hi, my name's so-and-so, and I'm trying to figure out this whole recovery thing. Our chapters would go to work immediately with that type of peer support model in helping that young person and even their family have that conversation. And that doesn't come with you needing to drain your savings account or any amount of money for us to provide those services for free through our volunteers.
That's amazing and a great opportunity. Hopefully people listening will start, and if it's not Sacramento, other areas reach out to you guys to start their own chapters. As a clinical psychologist, I was in private practice for about 10, 15 years before I entered the treatment world and the treatment field world. And I was, it's really my duty to stay on top of the top treatments and the most empirically validated treatments and most effective. And I felt a lot of frustration working with addiction in private practice. And those of you who know me have heard my spiel that I really do believe that community plays one of, if not the most important role in long-term recovery, and I'm sure you'd agree with that. But my question for you really is it that? I mean, we know how to treat people and give them coping skills and learn about their addiction. But is community and is basically building, a group of people in your life in early recovery, is that the missing link? Is it that simple?
I don't know if it's the missing link, but I do think that really taking that into account is really, in my terms, or a term that I use often, is a non-negotiable, that's something that has to be looked at and taken into account seriously.
And it seems like that's with the teenagers and the young people that we work with, it seems like that component is one of the bigger hills to get over, because you want to go back to your old friends, you want to go back to the same community. You go back. A lot of people don't know about these schools out there, these non-public schools that are recovery schools, which are incredible places. But so you return to your old home and you miss your friends. You want to be with them, and to try to convince a teenager to leave that friend group is probably one of the trickier kind of roads I feel like we go down.
Yeah, I think absolutely. One of the things that we talk about is, recovery has to be more attractive than addiction, which is an easy comment because addiction isn't necessarily that attractive. But the looking for something to use or misuse in order to have a epic life, if you will, right? Like, we have to make sure that we're living out our recovery lifestyle in a way that is more attractive and more fun and more exciting than the alternative. And that's something that I think doesn't always get talked about. I've seen it talked about a little bit more here and there. I mean, there's even some different brands that really promote that recovery lifestyle. But fun and recovery and excitement and fulfillment, those words all have to go together. Yeah. Not simply, no, don't do that, be in recovery, don't ever do that again, and if you do, you'll be in trouble, right? Like, that's not going to be exciting for a teenager.
No, and we share a mutual friend, Ted, who's got a great app, Mober, that offers this kind of community connection. And one of the things that Ted did was he runs these events. Like, they had a volleyball event that sounded really awesome. But there's still far and few between events, in my opinion. I mean, we've got sober proms and we've got stuff like that. But it's almost on the community, in my opinion, and I'd love to know your opinion on it's really on the community to start making recovery fun and making recovery exciting and a replacement. It's similar to what you're saying, but where does that onus lie?
I think a lot of it is not only dependent upon the community at large, but specifically the recovery community. And so, why there may be a barrier there, or why we may not hear about all those stories. And like, obviously I know Ted too. He's a rock star. He's a board member. And if you hang out with Ted, you're like, obviously the recovery lifestyle is epic and Mober's awesome. Yeah. But really, it's got to be on all of us, the Justins, the Teds, and everybody else who's in long-term recovery, because I'm actually not that unique, right? Like, I mean, I'm very fortunate and I have a cool recovery story, but there's tens of millions of recovery stories. And so I think the onus isn't just on the community at large to, be less discriminatory, to have less stigma, to help with access, but really for those of us who are in recovery, we have to shout it from the rooftops to make sure, especially for teenagers, that they know that your life isn't over because you're sober.
Thank you.
Well, why don't you consider this a rooftop right now, and let's shout it out. Let's talk about some of the things that are out there. As Matt brought up, a volleyball tournament. I mean, there's so many different things to where it allows them to be able to have a new peer group, to have new peer support. And again, as Matt said, they're coming back from these programs. The possibility is that they would go back to their old friends, but if they have a community that once they go out, they start playing volleyball with them, they start doing whatever activities, share some of the activities, and if we have anybody that's listening that is either struggling themselves or parents or professionals who know people that are struggling, share some of the things that they can look forward to.
Absolutely. I mean, so obviously, first on the top of my list as always is the YPR chapters. Our chapters are not only doing really great programs and providing support, but they're the king and queens of fun. I mean, even every year at our National Leadership Conference, when we bring all of our chapter leaders together, whether it's bubble soccer or laser tag or glow in the dark frisbee, I mean, it's so fun. It's actually a little dangerous. You know what I mean? But they're doing sober tailgate parties. But there's other organizations too. I mean, as much as I'm obviously a huge fan of YPR, there are great organizations like Transforming Youth Recovery, which oversees over 100 collegiate recovery programs. So that means there are programs in sober and recovery communities on a college campus, and they are doing things like sober tailgate parties. They're doing sober dances. They're doing sober just hangout sessions. I mean, I was just in Reno, Nevada last week, and they have an amazing program there right on the campus. I mean, they have their own space called NRAP, and I mean, they're playing Xbox, they're studying, of course, they're hanging out, they're celebrating somebody's birthday. I mean, it's just really cool places to hang out. There's, I believe you mentioned the recovery high schools. There's over 40 recovery high schools around the country, and you can check out the Association of Recovery High Schools online to find one near you or to help advocate to start one. I was at their graduation not this past year, but the year before, and I mean, you would think that you were at, any other, in a good way, any other regular high school graduation. Families, friends, everybody was excited. You could tell, all the kids were antsy and couldn't wait to graduate. There's even really innovative treatment programs that combine the treatment and the recovery and higher education all in one, which is called Life of Purpose. Life of Purpose, or The Haven, which is there in California or in Pennsylvania. I mean, those are just like 5 or 6 of them I can think of right now. I mean, there really are. That is something that is a secret that shouldn't be a secret anymore, that there are amazing programs and treatment centers and communities. They may all have these different acronyms, but they exist, and there's a lot of different ways to have fun in recovery.
And Justin, I love how excited you are talking about this. I mean, I think it resonates to anybody that's listening. And I wanted to share as far as a story that's sort of the old school thinking versus today. And I think what it is that we need to, it needs to be cool. It needs to be something that is exciting and cool to be sober. And many years ago, I worked as an undercover operative, and I went into high schools, and I was there to break up child pornography rings. But at the same time, there was a lot of drugs going on. And law enforcement, after I was successful breaking up a child pornography ring, they then wanted me to then go in and try and help break up drug rings and stuff. But what I realized was we had a different view of what it was. What they wanted was they wanted me to go in and be a dealer and be somebody who could work up the ladder and find out who the bigger people were that were doing it so that they could bust them. So I'm in a room with 7 people that are all law enforcement connected, and I said, I've got a different idea. Rather than giving me these clothes and the car and everything else and make me this cool drug dealer, why don't you give me all of those things and I'll be the coolest non-drug dealer. I will be the coolest sober guy, and I will make a mockery of the people who are doing it, and we can change the mindset. And they all looked at me and said, well, who do we arrest? So the problem, I think, is that we need to have everybody on board. It needs to be cool to not be doing drugs, and we need to have that focus from top to bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of little brothers, and one is 16 and one is 17, and they know that they know me, and their big brother is, in recovery and sober, but they don't know it because I've inculcated them to know that I'm, the CEO of YPR and recovery, and that R word and is the coolest thing ever. But they know that I am relatively happy, relatively confident. I'm living the dream, having fun. And for them, they're like, oh, apparently, if that's what sober or recovery means, who cares even what we call it, which is kind of a challenge which we could dig into if we need to. But my little brothers want to be like me because I'm happy. I'm living the dream. I'm going to school. I have a great job. I'm doing something that brings great joy and meaning to my life, and they want that. And then what's really neat is I get to share with them that obviously I get to go and do all these things, whether it's hanging out with the president or going to the White House or just being able to be happy, joyous, and free, that they can have that too. And I didn't need to get high or have a drink or do anything like that in order to have this amazing lifestyle. And I think that's that attraction is something that I see with my own family, or even when I was a youth pastor, and across so many of our YPR chapters and those programs that are making such a big difference for so many.
You know, piggybacking on what you're saying, when I was reading about you, you would, and I don't want to misquote you, but you had said something along the lines of recovery for you was, I think it was knowing who I am. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, you know, recovery for me, I am not a perfectly confident or perfectly centered person. I don't know anybody that is, frankly, but I don't wake up dreading realizing that I am myself. And that isn't necessarily something that came contingent within a lifestyle of misusing alcohol or other drugs. That's something for me that was there from a very, very, very young age. And that dissatisfaction, if not loathing of myself, was something that eventually drove me to find things. And those things were anywhere from sports to relationships to eventually alcohol and other drugs that drove me to feel better about myself and to try to find an identity. But now today, in recovery, I know who I am. I know what I believe in. I know what I want my life to be about. I know how I want to raise my daughter. I know who I am, and I don't wake up searching desperately to fill the hole in the soul or to, you know, twist a cap off a bottle to try to find a way to ease that discontentment. You know, I still get grumpy some days, and I don't always think I'm the greatest thing ever, but I don't have that that almost gnawing at my insides that I had every day, you know?
Yeah, and I think what we hear you saying is it's all about modeling. I think if we can model the right things and show that we are happy doing it, it's going to help everybody across the board. Now, we're talking with Justin Riley, and he is with Young People in Recovery. We are going to take a break. Stay with us. You're listening to Answers for the Family. Founded over 25 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield specializes in resolving adolescent issues that negatively impact the family. From preteen to young adult, we are experienced and qualified to help. We offer solutions which include referrals to a network of top professionals internationally that we work very closely with in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, and psychiatry. Our in-home crisis intervention care program helps to stabilize families and bring effective resolution. We are supported by our licensed investigation company that enables us to offer legal and expert services for locating runaway teens and more. Our therapeutic transportation services help to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely provided transportation to specialized schools and programs with unmatched experience and success. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services is the best solution when your family is facing personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585 and let us help you.
Welcome back to Answers for the Family. Alan and I are here with Justin Riley from Young People in Recovery. Justin, the statistics on drug abuse in young adults, it's really, really alarming. And I don't want to minimize that because I know it's been said so many times, but there's statistics such as that, you know, illicit drug use during 2015 was reported by 23% of 12th graders. That's 1 in 4 kids using illicit drugs. It's outnumbering deaths with drug use is outnumbering car accidents in the United States. These stats get worse and worse. I cringe. Thoughts?
You know, I mean, I can't leadership dust, which is my term for making it negative into a positive, that there's no way around that. The reality is that the numbers are not good, that there are people not only misusing more and more substances, but even in addition to that, there's people that are passing away every single day. We know that there are well over 300 people every day from alcohol to other drugs and all of the related accidents and suicidality, that there are a lot of numbers that are, you know, our development director often says numbers don't lie. And right now, the numbers aren't good when it comes to the amount of people continuing to explore and engage alcohol and other drug use. And at the same time, when we look at the day-to-day numbers of what's happening negatively every day, I also do, and this isn't totally to completely leadership dust it, because I really respect and honor the negative side of it. I mean, I've lost family and friends and people I care about to this. So there's no way to make that better, frankly. But at the same time, if we're going to tell the whole story of the negative numbers, the other numbers are, I mean, for me, I make a choice, and I know many people, recovery is a one day at a time. And if we look at the every single day people are passing away from it, if we also take into account that people are choosing recovery every day, if there's over 20 million Americans in recovery choosing recovery every day, tens of millions, even compared to the hundreds that we lose every day, though every one of those hundreds matter, that's actually a pretty good story, right? But we don't hear all of those, you know. So if we're looking at the daily output of people in recovery versus people not making it to recovery, actually there's more people in long-term recovery every day than there are people not getting into recovery, even though we know that both of those numbers are significant and they both obviously have their place in context. And again, there's no way around the fact that it is absolutely very grim times in a lot of ways, but there's also a lot of hope to be had as well.
Justin, another statistic from the National Institute on Drug Abuse is that 58.2% of the 12th graders acknowledged using marijuana. Now, this is now a huge topic because here in California and in many states, it is on the ballot. It is something that will be voted on very quickly. I come from a generation to where it was said that this was a gateway drug, and now you have other people saying differently. What's your feeling now, because you're right there dealing with a lot of young people? How do you feel about this being legalized, and do you think that it is going to take us, what road do you think it's going to take us down?
For me personally, I think that the more and more substances that we legalize, we have to, in concert, make sure that the regulations around the substances are very tightly watched. I'll speak not really as a person representing young people in recovery, the organization, for a moment, but just as a dad here in Colorado, where marijuana, both medical and recreational, is legal, right? As a dad, I find it very challenging to go, for instance, downtown on a walk with my daughter, because there's literally there's just marijuana that permeates our culture, that it is more likely for me and my wife and my daughter to smell marijuana than it is even tobacco from somebody smoking a cigarette. In our old home, we ended up moving because even for the first 2 years of us living in that home or so, we never even opened the windows because our neighbors, and it wasn't nefarious, it was completely legal, but our neighbors grew pot in the backyard. That's not really an environment that I would like my little girl, who's at that time was learning to crawl and walk, to be that close to it. And so I say all that to say that I think that there are community consequences that are maybe not talked about, or maybe they weren't perceived, therefore my comments around regulation. And I also think from a YPR hat, CEO of YPR, that we find that it is an additional conversation and obstacle to overcome for a youth seeking or in long-term recovery, because it's one more thing that they may have to deal with in their community, just like alcohol being available at a lot of restaurants and grocery stores and even gas stations. But we don't advocate for complete prohibition, right, of alcohol or other substances. So I think that it just has to be done very, very, very comprehensively from both a legalization and regulatory perspective.
It's interesting. I wear the two hats similar to you as a psychologist and also as an employee of Betty Ford Center. And a lot of times, sometimes it's, it aligns, sometimes it doesn't. And in this situation, for me, it aligns that I don't really see the benefit of legalizing marijuana. And the thing that was fascinating to me is I went to the Rams game yesterday, and as a parent, I don't really go out and do that much stuff. Normally it's family activities. And I went to this game with a couple friends yesterday, and we were tailgating and sitting, and I was having probably one of the best sandwiches I've ever had, the Godmother from Bay Cities in Santa Monica. I will pub that. I will plug that because it was the best sandwich I ever had. And around me was probably 300-400 intoxicated men and women. And the thing that I pulled from it was the language, the way they were talking, the aggressiveness. There was fights in the parking lot. This was not what I would have taken my 6-year-old daughter to. I would never walk my daughter into that stadium. And I grew up a Rams fan in Anaheim, where my dad took me every single Sunday. And so I guess, and I'm not trying to be this old, conservative fart here on the radio, but there's something in me that is concerned about the fact that you can't walk your children downtown or they're inundated with the smell of marijuana. It bugs me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I feel like the old guy too. I mean, I'm only 28, mind you, but I'm just like, gosh, can I not just go on a walk with my wife and daughter? And it's very. I'm a Coloradoan, so I mean, I've been here my whole life, so it's very apparent and different for me. I know how it used to be, so to speak, which that's why I sound like an old person. But when I was young, that wasn't a thing, So it's just really different now.
Now, a question actually for both of you, for both Matt and Justin. There's a lot of information out there in regards to the medical benefits for some people in regards to marijuana. What is your opinions on that, and where do we draw that line?
Go ahead, Justin.
Sure, yeah. So this is always a really easy answer for me. My sister's the doctor, not me. But honestly, I'm not in a position to even personally, professionally, it isn't even me escaping the question. I don't know enough about the actual medical side of what helps and what hurts and why. I will say that, I've heard different stories around, especially different young people that maybe, and I may sound really silly, but my preface was I'm not the doctor, so if I sound silly, maybe I should. But I've heard that different forms of medical marijuana have even helped with different seizures and improved the quality of life of really young kids. And they can take them they can maybe take them in pill form, I believe. My comment to all of that is, gosh, I will also say as a parent, if my little girl was struggling with a litany of different medical issues, and the only thing that did help her was taking that pill, so to speak, okay, right? But again, that's very different than, everybody in downtown Denver just smoking weed all day, right? So from a medical perspective, I don't really know enough or am qualified enough to confirm whether the medical stuff is correct. But I will say as a parent, I'm pretty sure I would do whatever it takes to make sure my kiddo is safe and healthy. And even if it is not necessarily, even if it's a little bit more innovative. So I guess those are my comments around that piece of it, if that made sense.
Yeah, and I actually completely agree with you on this one. I feel that we're not discussing medicinal use, we're discussing recreational use. And of all the drugs and alcohol that I cringe with, the opiates, with the opiate epidemic, there's nothing worse in the world to me right now than the opiate epidemic. But I could see a need for, if you have a serious surgery and you've got 3 to 5 days of acute pain and you don't have a family history of addiction, I can see opiates being a very useful tool so you can get through those 2 to 3 days. Medically is a whole different issue, in my opinion. I'm sure, we're going to see the results where they're doing tons of studies now. So we're going to get these results that Justin's talking about in the next 5 to 10 years. I'm more concerned with the recreational use and really what's, monetarily, what's the purpose and what's really going on here.
Yeah, I really find, and Matt, I don't know if you wanted to comment. Actually, I'm sorry.
No, that's it. That was my opinion.
Again, I agree. Not to underscore what I already said, but they're just different. Whether, and maybe now we transition to opioids, I'm not sure. You're in charge of the show, not me. But I think any case, right, whether it's, no more opioids anywhere, or no more marijuana, or no more alcohol. Well, if we go back to even the beginning of the show, what I'm talking about, at least from my own personal journey, this is not just a matter of putting down a substance. It's a recovery lifestyle. I'm talking about the feelings of inadequacy and not knowing who I was as an adolescent. Not necessarily I came across the pot cookie and here I was 7 years later with 7 rehabs, right? And I don't say that I know that there are accidents like that and there are some very serious consequences from things like that. But my point is I've learned in my life, and it's very difficult for me, but balance is key.
Yeah.
All or nothing mentalities have always gotten me into trouble in recovery and in addiction. And so I think from an opioid or marijuana or substance perspective, all or nothing solutions are rarely real good, solid strategies, because communities aren't all or nothing. Families aren't all or nothing. Our communities and our families and different policies are complex, and I think they should be treated as complex matters,
I agree. And in recovery and having a recovery life, the thing that's drawn me to the community really is it's not even a scientific thing. It's about being an honest, good person. And that's the thing that I've loved more than anything about working in the recovery community, is that there's a set of personal principles about yourself, the be of service component, the just the general kindness and being a better person. But starting at step one with honesty and being just a good person, and me surrounding myself around good people is critical and crucial. And so there's so much to this argument, but like you're saying, I don't think that all or nothing is the answer, and I think that the being in the middle is a good place to be.
Yeah, Justin, now I know that when we were pulling up information in regards to YPR, one of the things that we saw was that you believe that there are different pathways to recovery. So share with us some of the different pathways that have been successful. I know that our listeners love success stories, so give us some successful pathways.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I guess this is not in a particular order. So it isn't from greatest to least by any means. There's amazing success stories of people that I've met literally over the years now, thousands of people that are recovering all different types, whether that be through an abstinence-based recovery or a health and wellness pathway of recovery, which may include working with a Phoenix Multisport or some type of sober lifestyle brand that really incorporates physical fitness along with recovery principles, or faith-based recovery, or LifeRing, or even people that I've met people. We actually just had an award winner at our national leadership conference who's not even in recovery, but she started a chapter, and she's now really talked about how recovery is a part of her lifestyle, though she's literally not even in recovery from alcohol or other drugs or even mental health, but just says, gosh, there's something here that I just want to be a part of. Yeah. And I think that's a really cool thing, especially from a cultural perspective, when we start to see recovery being attractive for those who aren't even in recovery. I think there's great advocacy implications and cultural implications, and we could do a whole another hour on that alone. But I think the main thing to keep in mind when it comes to different recovery pathways is that that's a real statement now. That used to be a few different people believed that, and they said, well, there's this acronym or this acronym, and that's really it. But there are more pathways of recovery popping up all over the country all the time, and I think it's phenomenal, whether it's medicated-assisted treatment, whether it's, again, different anonymous groups, whether it's abstinence-based, faith-based, LifeRing, moderation management. I could go on, but really the big takeaway for us is that there really are a lot of different ways that people can and do recover.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point to bring up, because there are people out there that have talked about the fact that they have gone through recovery and relapsed. Well, maybe they didn't go on the right path. Maybe if they can get involved with a community like yours, they're going to be led to a path that better suits them.
Absolutely. And one of my team, if they're listening, will chuckle because they know I'm all about this. But one of my very favorite things about our entire organization, and it's not even just ours because I don't want it to sound too YPR plug-like, but when communities have what they call all recovery meetings. An all recovery meeting is that it's so simple. I think that's why it's actually so effective, is because it just is what it is. So this is a meeting where anybody and everybody from any pathway, or even if they're not in recovery, can get together and talk about their recovery, or talk about their struggles in trying to find recovery, or their successes in recovery, or families and parents or siblings or spouses or friends. That literally it's a community in whatever shape and form that community shows up in to talk about recovery. And it's a really beautiful thing just because it's so simple and it's so easy to do. It's not something that's uber complex whatsoever. It's literally a group of people, whether they're sitting in a circle, whether they're, it's kind of like green eggs in hand. You can do an all recovery meeting anywhere. You can do it virtually, in a circle, in chairs, stand, outside, inside, whatever. But really just bring up that the fact and the overarching paradigm is that people can and do recover, and let's talk about that. And I see a lot of success with those types of meetings.
I think that's beautiful, Justin. I think that the one unfortunate thing being in LA in a community of a lot of competition among treatment programs is, and also within the recovery community between, let's say, AA, Smart Recovery, other things, people naturally kind of, take sides and naturally fight for what they believe in. But really, we all have the exact same common goal. And when I'm bringing that up, I'm thinking that you don't want to keep promoting young people in recovery. But to me, I don't think it can get promoted enough. I mean, I think that this is an opportunity for every community to really grab a hold of this epidemic and this true crisis that we have. And again, this is something that's free. This is something that doesn't cost an arm and a leg. This is something that everyone can get involved in, that makes a huge difference in people's lives. And also the most important piece, like we're discussing, is it is a huge piece of recovery that's so badly needed. So I encourage everybody listening and people all over to please youngpeopleinrecovery.org, visit it. Talk to Justin, talk to his representatives across the country. This is the piece that I and the treatment field can't do anything about except for support it. I can't, I can do as much as I can, but it's the community basically has to take hold of these things, and the recovery community and the families. The more we promote this stuff, the better our statistics and results are going to be.
And Justin, we have a listener question that is addressing this particular point that we're on right now. This one reads, is Young People in Recovery working with other community-based programs such as the YMCA or the YWCA? It says, I've been volunteering at the YMCA for 10 years, and this sounds like a great partnership that would benefit the youth of the Santa Fe, New Mexico area. And in dealing with many of the kids who are on probation for drugs related to offenses and that are trying to kick the habit. And this is from Eric M., and again from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, it's a great question, and the quick, simple answer is yes. Our chapters work with organizations and systems all across the continuum, not only just in the recovery space, but in the community space, whether they're churches or YMCAs or YWCAs or in the justice system. I mean, we're getting ready to launch a program that works with, we actually create chapters in all of the different communities where different populations, as they're released from jail or prison, as they go back into the communities, they're launched right into our chapters. Or even we have a great program in Wichita, Kansas, which is a partnership with United Healthcare, and we have a program called My Journey. And so we have found, well, I guess I'll embrace the fact that I know that the gentleman, Eric, was from New Mexico, but it sounds like most of the team on the radio is in California. So kind of taking a little techie perspective quickly, a YPR chapter, the best way to think about it is really like a disruptive technology, meaning that it is the missing link or piece or neutral platform that allows any community, any part of a system in a community to bring in resources. That first step is applying and creating to start a chapter in your local community. And then our team goes to work immediately to make sure that those chapters are trained and those members and those supporters are vetted and given resources so that then we can go to work in building really, really cool programs, whether, again, it's in partnership with anywhere from healthcare to state to federal to the justice system, colleges, high schools, I mean, anything and everything. Because if you think about it, the reason why a YPR chapter is that really innovative, disruptive technology is because we're tapping into the collective good and that almost limitless capacity that are people in long-term recovery. It's unlocking the code, if you will, to your community of realizing, wow, there's amazing people in recovery here, and people in recovery are just totally awesome and epic, and they know all kinds of things. So can we create a way for them to come together and really make a big impact in their community? And our chapters allow you to do this without having to then go create, another new nonprofit. I mean, we're here to exist and do that with you already. So I get a little excited, but
yeah, I love the excitement, and again, I just want to reiterate what you're saying so that people get it. So be it Julie in Sacramento or Eric in Santa Fe or anyone else out there listening, there doesn't have to be a chapter in your area. They will help you form one. So just where some of the are some, people can get a hold.
Absolutely. So we have well over 8 chapters all around the country. So that's essentially 3 of the 50 states, and we're bringing more and more on all the time. Find out where all those chapters are on our website or through social media. Whether it's through, if you don't want to spend a website, you can just call the number on the website and one of our chapter leaders will coordinate back to you. If you say, actually, not only I'm not a community member, but I'm somebody, whether it's with a treatment center, and I have just a ton of young people coming into my treatment center, and I know that treating somebody that's 13, 14, 15, 16 is different than somebody who is 113, 114, whatever ages they may be, but you may be somebody that sits at the state level. You may be somebody with healthcare. You may be somebody that is an employer, and you want employee assistance programs to be created. Like, you're an individual in your community that knows that the epidemic is hitting your community hard, and you go online and there's not a chapter near you, but you can start one or be a part of that process of us helping you find a dedicated leader for that area. And our mantra is servant leadership. We go to work for you to make sure that your community gets what you need, literally, so people don't die.
And that website, again, is youngpeopleinrecovery.org. Justin, thank you so much. This has been so informative, and please stay in touch with us. Again, for anybody, if you're out there driving, if you can't write that down, go to our site, answersforthefamily.com. We have all the information, as well as this show will be archived. You can listen to it again and soak in all of this great information. And again, for everybody else out there, please be sure to put us on your calendar and tune in next Monday, October 17th, when our special guest, Al Killian, will discuss his upcoming book, Integrative Mastery, 4th Level Family Relationships.
And if you missed or you want to share our show with your friends, please visit our archives of past interviews at answersforthefamily.com. You may also subscribe or resubmit your name to download your free copy of the Attitude of Gratitude Journal, your 21-day guide to achieving the quality of thankfulness through self-discovery.
And the next time you're on Facebook and Twitter, please remember to stop by our page, check out some of our latest posts, and if you like them, please like us and spread the word. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Be good human beings, and be back with us next week on Answers for the Family.
You're listening to Answers for the Family with Alan Cardoza and Matt Polachek, only on LA Talk Radio.